Hello and welcome to my recap of my second half marathon, the Coast Guard half marathon that took place on Saturday, March 5th. I do have some notes below my video screen, so if you see me looking down, that's what I'm looking at. I've also got a timer because I want to see how long this takes me. I have on my website, mommodeloading.com, detailed like recaps of every week of my training. There will be a post with this video on it as well, sharing some pictures because I don't know how to edit videos, so I don't know how to edit those pictures in. So if you want to check that out, it will be up shortly after this video goes live. So yeah, you can go, again, my website's mommodeloading.com. I'll have it down in the description as well. So let's just jump into it. I'm going to try to keep this as short and sweet as possible, but I have not been able to do it in under like 40 minutes, but I'm going to try really hard. So race recap, training recap. I ran a total of 168.81 miles for a total of 40 hours, 54 minutes, and 16 seconds. That includes the race day. That includes the 13.1 miles that I ran on race day and the 3 hours, 7 minutes, and 18 seconds that I completed it in. I can't compare this race with my first race by any means because my first race was Mount Rushmore in September. It was literally 8.5 miles uphill before we started going down. So Elizabeth City was relatively flat. Like I had some inclines, but nothing compared to what I trained in my neighborhood. So my pace did get faster. Again, 8.5 miles uphill. My Rushmore average pace was 16 minutes and 18 seconds per mile. And this race pace was 13 minutes and 42 seconds per mile. Now, the beauty of that is that 13:42 is almost a whole minute faster than when I started my training 12 weeks ago. And again, I've got a lot of really good hills in my neighborhood. So the fact that I was a whole minute faster on a flat course made me feel really good. Made me feel like training in these hills was great. So again, if you want to read any of the in-depth training, I even include like what I did for training on my treadmill and pivots that I've had to make with injuries and whatnot. You can find it all on my website. Again, mommodeloading.com. Link will be down in the description. So let's get into the race week planning and last minute changes. So I had told my husband that I wanted to take my car because my daughter gets car sick, and I was hoping that by taking my car, she wouldn't get car sick. And I took somebody's advice and moved her into the center of the back seat so that she could see out the windshield, and that seemed to help. She didn't get car sick when I went on some pretty hilly roads that she has historically gotten sick on. And I also was making sure that my dog had enough room in the back of my car that we could put his bed back there so that he could comfortably sit and not be in the back seat, breathing all over my dog or breathing all over my daughter and potentially making her sick from nasty dog breath. And then he's also decided to stop eating his dog food. So we have to make him his food, which means I now have to plan for a cooler and ice packets. And how am I going to transport his food? So I'm getting all that done. I'm making my lists for things I need for race day, for me in general, for our daughter, including lots of extra clothes in case she got sick or had an accident, because this was the first real long trip we've taken since she started potty training. But she didn't need any extra clothes, which is great. But Thursday afternoon comes around and I'm talking to my husband about something, and then he informs me we were taking his truck, which I had not planned on, but apparently we were bringing home furniture. So I had to pivot, and I put her car seat in the middle of his truck and drove her around on those same windy roads, and she did fine. And so I was like, okay, I'm feeling good about this. But then we have the dog sitting in the back seat with her, and I was like, oh, this isn't going to be good. But he actually rode on the floor and laid down for the majority of the drives down there and back. I also thought we were staying with my in-laws, and we weren't. We were staying at his friend's house. So that kind of threw me for a loop too. But anyway, everything got packed up on Thursday with the exception of like some small bathroom items that got loaded up on Friday morning, and we were out the door like by 11:30. It took us a little over 4 hours to get down there because of traffic, even though we left earlier in the day, hoping to avoid traffic. You know, people are just dumb. So there were accidents and whatnot. Um, but it took us a little over 4 hours to get down to our friend's house, and I had hoped that it would take me a little over an hour to get to the expo, pick up my packet, and come back. But because there were some side road closures getting to the expo, the main road was actually, it was open, but cross streets were closed. So what should have taken me 30, 35 minutes to get to the expo took me almost an hour. And then it took me about an hour to get back. So round trip took me about 2 hours. Before bed, I made sure that my bib was pinned to my shirt and that I was ready to go first thing in the morning. I had my breakfast set out. It was like the Kodiak protein oatmeal, not something that I trained with eating because I actually run later in the day. When I'm at home, I don't run first thing in the morning. My body doesn't like it. But I think I need to start training that way because races are always stupid early. Like I had a 6:30 a.m. start for Rushmore, 6:30. This one was 7:30. Like it's just early. So I think I need to start training early on my long runs. Anyway, I made sure everything was ready to go. All my clothes were ready to go. I did forget my sunglasses and I still don't know where those are at. So I actually need to check my husband's truck when he gets home. He says he's looked, but that's the only place they've got to be. But anyway, I had everything ready to go. And at about 11 o'clock, we all went to bed. We slept on air mattresses downstairs in the living room, with my dog sleeping next to my daughter and one of their dogs sleeping on the other side of my husband. And that dog had some horrific gas. Now, days before race days, whether they're big, half marathons like this for me, or if they're just small fun runs, I usually don't get a whole lot of sleep. Same with like when I travel, if I'm flying somewhere, I usually don't get a whole lot of sleep. However, this dog's gas was so bad that I really didn't get any solid sleep. At one point I looked and it was almost 2:30 in the morning. The dog had gotten up, was walking around, peed on the floor. And when I realized it wasn't my dog, I was like, not my dog, not my problem. And my alarm went off at 5 o'clock. I was like, oh, this is going to be really crappy. But while I was eating my oatmeal, I was checking the weather and it was in the 30s, like low 30s. And I was so glad that I brought pants because I was like, great, I'll wear pants instead of my shorts, because it wasn't supposed to get into the 40s until closer to the time I was going to finish my race. And it wasn't supposed to get into like the 50s or 60s until like well into the afternoon. So I opted for my pants. We get to the start line just before 7 o'clock. My husband drops me off. I am super glad that I kept my sweatshirt because it was windy and super cold. And I had enough time to go to the bathroom before the race started. And so now how I felt before, during, and after the race. Like I was nervous beforehand, but like a good nervous, like an excited nervous. Like I said, it was really cold and windy, and I was really glad that I had my sweatshirt. And I was like, hey, maybe I'm going to end up leaving this on the whole time. Actually, I finally found my friend, and I haven't seen her in like over a decade. And so it was really nice to get to talk to her and chat with her until we got to the start line. We trained together, used the same training program and stuff like that. And so it was really cool to do this race with her. Even though she is much faster than I am. The race started and we got to the start line and we said good luck, and she took off and I started going. We got up and over this little bridge, and about a half mile in, the wind died down and it got hot, and I no longer needed my sweatshirt. And it took me a while to figure out how to attach it to myself so that it wouldn't fall off anymore, especially since every 3 miles I was taking my Gatorade shoes. And so I was having to take my bag off, my camel pack off, and just didn't want my sweatshirt to drop. Finally figured it out, and I was golden the rest of the race. Because I can't edit, you'll need to go to my website if you want to see my my pictures at every mile, as well as seeing we support the U.S. Coast Guard signs that were up all over the course in people's yards. This was, again, this was only my second race, but this was the first race that had spectators. And some of these people had signs cheering on someone in one of the races. Other people were just out there cheering. It was so awesome to see them at the end of their driveways in their pajamas with blankets and coffee and stuff like that, just out there cheering. And you know, I almost cried multiple times because I've been a spectator on a course before where I'm cheering on runners and telling them like, hey, good job, keep going, keep pushing, you know, you're almost there. I've been like towards the finish line. Um, so hearing the cheers, you know, at the very beginning and at the end, it made me emotional. Like, I don't know, I don't know if it's just because I was already emotional being there for my second race and stuff like that, but it really hit me like all up in the feels, and so it was amazing. So thank you to all of those that were spectators out on the the course for the half marathon because you guys were amazing. And it was shortly after mile marker 4 that I started to tear up because we made it onto the main road to the base and ran up the drive. And I can see the airfield and I can see the school coming into view and see the mile marker 5 sign. And it's actually kind of hoping to see the bus for the school because long story short, I had 8 guys in my class when I was there almost 18 years ago. Got in trouble. Long story. I can share that another time. But they had to wash the bus because they were dumb, and along with a whole bunch of other chores. But I hit mile 5 and we made the turn and got up towards the E Club. And then I had like a short snippet of a memory. I didn't spend a whole lot of time in the E Club because I wasn't 21 when I was there. So I went for St. Patty's Day, and like all the guys in my class were ordering green beer, and there was only like 3 of us that weren't 21 at the time. So that's really the extent of my memory, is just remembering a couple of guys drinking green beer. And yeah, that was it. So kept going, running through, and just seeing the base on foot was just like flooding me with memories. Just past mile 6, we had an amazing coastie female that was, you know, a super amazing hype woman. Like we were almost halfway there, and she was just, oh my god, amazing. Just past her is where the course split off, and so the half mile or the half marathoners went around the station. Full marathoners kept going. I think they hit down by the barracks, which would have brought a flood of memories also. But that again, stories for another time. We made it around the base, or around the station, and back out to the main road and hit mile marker 7. It was the last mile marker for the half marathon on base, and just kept going. And I started to feel tired. And I was like, you just did 12 weeks of training to get to this moment. You're going to keep going. And it was sometime around miles 8 or 9 and that I started shifting my running and walking distances. So you'll see if you go to my website and read some of my trainings, I trained myself to run 4/10 of a mile and walk 1/10 of a mile. But on these longer runs, and especially on races, towards the end, for a few miles, I start shortening my run periods to about 0.35 miles and walking 0.15 miles, just to give myself a little bit of a breather, give my legs a little bit of a break so that I can hit that last push. Because regardless of what you're doing, no matter what you're doing, like no matter what race you're doing, you somehow find this energy when you see the finish line and you just go. Like you see nothing else. Like, and that's what happened. I hit mile 13. I did not take a picture of myself at mile 13 because I was like, I got 1/10 of a mile left. I have got to bust it. I've got to go. And that's what I did. I wanted to walk, and actually my body tried to walk, and I was like, no, you can see the finish line, go. And that's what I did. I ran, and I ran as fast and as hard as I could. And I got tunnel vision. Like I didn't even look to see if I could see my husband or my daughter, or my friend Rachel, anywhere at the finish line. I just got tunnel vision and I saw the finish line. And as I was crossing it, I saw 3 hours, 7 minutes, no idea for the seconds because I did not cross the start line at the start of the race. So I didn't know what my chip time was going to be. And apparently, as I crossed the finish line, the announcer says my name. My daughter said, "Yay, mommy!" I didn't hear it, but I started ugly crying. And then as I'm there, the lady appears with a camera in my face, tells me to put on my medal, which is like super, super awesome, 13.1. Tells me to put on my medal, and she takes my picture, and I find my husband and Rachel, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Gave Rachel a huge hug. She thanked me for, inviting her to do this with me. And I hand my husband my phone, and I'm like, can you take some pictures of us so I can send them to her? And that was when I discovered that my medal has a moving part, and it's got different like things for the like, it's super cool. And it's gonna stay right here for the most part, because there it is. That's the helicopter that I used to work on. It's getting decommissioned, by the way. So after the race, I felt pretty good. Like my lower half, like from the waist down, it felt pretty beat up. 13.1 miles later will do that to you. I thought I might have a blister on my foot, but not both feet, which I ended up discovering I did. I did have a blister on my left foot in the same place that I got a blister in week 9 on my 12-mile run. And again, you can go to my website and read about that. And my right hip flexor felt real tight, but no pain, just sore. So after the race, I managed to survive the 35-ish minute drive back to our friend's house. I got showered and cleaned up. I used the Theragun on my shins, my calves, my ankles, my arches, my toes, my feet, like all over, to help with that recovery, because I cramped like for 2 hours after my first race in those areas, and it was so bad. And I did not have that happen this time. So yeah, I did something right. As much as I wanted breakfast food for like my post-race meal, my husband said Sonic, and I got tunnel vision on Sonic. And it was delicious. But about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we decided to head home. So we loaded up the truck. I was a little nervous. It took us 3 hours to get home, but I slept for half of it. And I was actually feeling really good. Like my body was still sore. I'm still a little sore, I'm recording this Thursday after race day. And I feel good. I'm not in any pain. I'm just a little sore. But that's okay. That's part of being 37 years old and being, carrying around extra weight. But I've got a plan. So I asked people on my social medias, and the only question that I got, I asked them like, what would you want to know? Do you want to know anything specific about my training, or about the race itself, or anything specifics that you want to know? And the only question that I got was, what's next? So here's what's next. I have anywhere from 10 to 14 weeks before I start training for my next race, because yes, I know when my next race will be. I just don't know where or which race, but I'll get there in a second. So I have a call with my dietitian tomorrow to shift from training mode, which is maintenance mode, because you can't train in weight loss mode, because you have to replenish your body especially after these long runs. So we're going to make that shift so that I can hopefully lose the weight that I gained between my first and second race, and maybe even a little more, so that I feel like I'm in a better place physically for my next training. I have a call tomorrow afternoon with one of the coaches from the app that I just used for my training to talk about, is it possible for them to do an endurance and mileage based training, because my first race was done endurance based, but I never ran more than 8 miles. I also had an injury, which again, you can go back on my website and see, those recaps too. But I never ran more than 8 miles. So I like the mileage aspect for my long runs, but I like the endurance based workouts for during the week, because it's a lot easier for me to figure out how to fit in a 45-minute workout 2, 3, 4 times a week than it is to try and figure out how to fit in a 4, 5, or 6 mile run that can take anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. So you know, depending on how that conversation goes, will determine if I do a 12-week training program or a 14 or a 16-week training program for my next race. And that being said, I've got 2 races in mind, and it's going to depend on, like I said, what, you know, where I could go. I would really, really, really like to do the vacation races, Great Smoky Mountain, Black Bear Double. That would mean on Friday, September 9th, I would do the 5K, and then Saturday, September 10th, I would do the half marathon. That would give me 3 cool medals, as long as allowing me to check off my goal of completing 3 half marathons in a year. But if I can't make it there, I am going to sign up for the Sea, Air, and Space medal, which means by completing the Coast Guard half marathon, I can also do any of the races from the Air Force race that is in September. I will choose to do the Air Force half marathon so I can cross off that 3 marathons or half marathons in a year goal. And then also do the Space Force 10 miler in December. So again, I'm just not sure logistically what I'm going to do, but I sent a teaser for the Smoky Mountain race to my friend that I just ran with, and she's like, let's do it. If nobody else, if our families can't go, we can ride together. And so that may be what we do. So I just gotta earn some money so I can pay for the race. But anyway, that's as far as races, that's what's next. Starting Monday, I'm going to start a workout regimen. It's going to be anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes, 5 to 7 days a week, depending on what program I pick. All of the programs that I'm looking at are either going to be, they're somewhere in the 10 to 13 week range. So I'll be finishing them as I'm getting started for my next race training. So yeah, that's kind of what it is. If you have any other questions for me, you can check me out all over social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I am more active on Instagram. It's all one word, at FitnessWithMyranda, spelled MYRANDA. And I will put all those links in the description below. Again, if you want to see the pictures along the race route, go to my website, mommodeloading.com. This video will also be in that post because, like I said before, I cannot edit. I don't know how to edit, so I can't just put those pictures in the video. But thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Again, if you have any questions or anything for me, you can hit me up on all the socials. You can also email me, fitnesswithmiranda@gmail.com. That's it for my race recap. So I hope you've enjoyed it. And I'll see you on Instagram.